You are not imagining the weight you feel when their name suddenly crosses your mind. That tightness in your chest, the longing that arrives without permission in the middle of a quiet night, the strange sense that someone is still emotionally present, even while they are physically absent. It is easy to call it an illusion, to tell yourself you are being too sensitive, too attached, or simply unable to let go. But emotions do not always disappear just because two people stop speaking. Carl Jung once wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the meeting of two chemical substances. If there is a reaction, both are changed. That does not mean every intense connection is meant to last forever, but it does mean that some encounters leave an imprint. Some people awaken parts of us that had been silent for years, and sometimes the person who feels the connection most intensely is not the person who knows how to stay close to it. Tonight, set aside the shallow explanations that have made you blame yourself. Let us look beneath the silence. Why would someone who may genuinely feel deeply for you begin to step backward? Why would they create distance, stop sending messages, and let silence fill the space between you? Sometimes, silence is not a lack of feeling. Sometimes, it is a frightened ego speaking in a language it barely understands. They may not have pulled away because every memory disappeared. They may not have left because you meant nothing. In some cases, a person retreats because the emotional power they feel around you becomes too difficult for them to control. Your presence may have touched something inside them that they had spent years keeping hidden. And if you have been searching for answers that never come, if your mind has become tired from wondering what they are thinking, perhaps this is the moment to stop chasing certainty outside yourself. Later, we will explore a subtle psychological sign that can help you distinguish between someone who may be missing you quietly and someone who is truly trying to move on. For now, breathe slowly. Let us enter the quieter, more complicated part of this story, the place inside their mind where fear, longing, pride, and silence can exist together. Think about the nights you have been living through lately. You look at your phone. The screen is empty. You wait for a notification that never appears. Whenever a message arrives, your heart jumps for a second. You hope it is their name. Then you see it is not, and disappointment settles in again. That kind of silence can become heavy. It can press against your confidence until you begin asking painful questions. What did I do wrong? Was I too much? Was I not interesting enough to keep? Was I not worth choosing? Those questions are understandable. When someone once felt emotionally close to you, someone who shared laughter, long eye contact, private stories, and vulnerable moments, suddenly becomes distant, it can feel as if the center of your world has shifted. The contradiction is what hurts most. How can someone who once seemed so connected to you now behave as though you are a stranger? How can someone who knew your softness become the person who gives you the coldest silence? But one thing you may not be seeing is this. Silence is often not proof that there are no feelings left. Sometimes, it is the sound of a person trying to defend themselves from feelings they do not know how to carry. When you assume they forgot you easily, you may be looking only at what is visible on the surface. Human beings have complicated defense mechanisms. When a feeling becomes too large, when a connection reaches beyond the outer layer of the ego, the first reaction is not always courage. Often, the first reaction is escape. Some people have built their lives around control. They are used to living in a world they can predict, a world where they do not need anyone too much, a world where vulnerability feels dangerous and emotional dependence feels like weakness. Then you enter that world. You arrive with an emotional intensity that they did not expect. Without forcing anything, you begin to weaken defenses they spent years building. You make them feel seen. You make their controlled world feel more alive. And suddenly, the walls they trusted begin to shake. Pause here for a moment. They may know that their silence has hurt you. They may understand that the distance they created has left you alone with questions. Yet behind the mask of indifference they show on social media, or around friends, there may be an inner conflict they have never explained to anyone. The physical space they place between you may be the only way they know how to calm the storm inside themselves. To understand why deep love can sometimes create distance, we have to enter the darker corridors of the psyche, the places where people often run from the very thing they want most. In Jungian psychology, there is a beautiful and mysterious idea known as anima and animus. Jung believed that within every man there is an unconscious feminine aspect called the anima. Within every woman there is an unconscious masculine aspect called the animus. When we fall in love intensely, we may not be responding only to the physical person in front of us. We can also be projecting unconscious parts of our own soul onto them. To them, you may not have been merely someone pleasant to talk to. You may have become a psychological reflection of something they were missing inside themselves. You may have become a living mirror, someone whose presence awakens what had been buried in their unconscious. When they looked into your eyes, when they spent time with you, they may not have seen only your beauty, your warmth, or your personality. They may have encountered a reflection of their own hidden inner world. And this is where Jung's concept of the shadow becomes important. The shadow is made up of the parts of ourselves we push away, hide, or deny, because we believe they are weak, frightening, shameful, or unacceptable. A person may hide their fear of rejection. They may bury old wounds. They may conceal a deep belief that they are not worthy of love. They may convince everyone, including themselves, that they are independent, unaffected, and impossible to hurt. But when someone offers them real love and acceptance, those hidden parts can rise to the surface. Your care may have made them confront wounds they had avoided for years. Your closeness may have reminded them of past abandonment. Your affection may have awakened the fear that they could lose something precious. And that is why love can feel threatening to someone whose identity depends on emotional control. Real love asks the ego to soften. It asks a person to admit, "You matter to me. I need you. I could be hurt by losing you." For someone with a fragile ego, or someone who has learned to protect themselves through rigid self-reliance, that admission can feel unbearable. It can feel as if their entire identity is at risk. So, when they are standing before the mirror of their own soul, their first instinct may not be to move closer with open arms. It may be to run. They do not necessarily run because they hate you. They may run because they are frightened by who they become around you. They fear that if they fall deeper, they will lose control. They fear that if you leave one day, they will fall apart. And in order to prevent a pain that has not even happened, their ego whispers something like this: "Step away now. Do not text. Stay quiet. Pretend you do not care." The coldness you receive today is not automatic proof that you are unworthy. It may simply show that your presence has activated something they do not yet have the emotional capacity to face alone. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let the tension leave your chest, even if only for a moment. You are not foolish for feeling that a connection affected you. You are not begging for love simply because you want clarity. You may be dealing with someone who is not ready to let their defenses collapse in the presence of genuine intimacy. Write truth in the comments if this feels familiar. Now, let us go deeper into the fear that often disguises itself as rejection. Distance can become a defense mechanism for someone who is not prepared to face the intensity of their own emotions. Imagine being in their position. Imagine growing up believing that safety means strength, that needing no one is the only way to avoid disappointment, that you must always remain in control of your feelings. Then, unexpectedly, you meet someone whose smile can change your entire day, someone whose brief message can affect your mood more than you want to admit, someone whose presence turns a previously flat world into something bright, emotional, and full of color. At first, it can feel like a miracle, but slowly, the unconscious fear begins to wake up. The ego starts sounding an alarm. This is dangerous. If this person has the power to make you feel this happy, then they also have the power to hurt you deeply. That fear of losing control can activate the shadow. Old abandonment wounds may return. Memories of betrayal may rise again. A buried sense of being unworthy of love may become louder. And the more strongly they feel drawn to you, the more intensely they may fear losing themselves. That is why something confusing can happen after a beautiful moment. You may have had a night where you felt emotionally close. You may have shared warmth, vulnerability, intimacy, or a sense that the connection was finally becoming real. Then, the next day, they pull away. They become cold. They stop responding. They create distance as though the closeness never happened. This may be a panic response from an ego trying to restore the safe distance it believes has been violated. They need physical space to convince themselves that they are still in control, that they can still be fine without you, that they do not need anyone. So, beginning tonight, try changing the story you tell yourself. Instead of repeating, "I was rejected," "I am unwanted," "I was thrown away," consider a more balanced possibility. They may be fighting something inside themselves. They may be struggling with fear, pride, unresolved pain, and an inability to receive a love that feels larger than the emotional world they know. But this does not mean you should place your life on hold for them. It does not mean you should accept endless uncertainty. And it does not mean that every silent person is secretly preparing to return. What is happening inside them is their responsibility. What happens inside you is yours. So, what may be going on in their mind during the days when they choose not to contact you? Are they truly peaceful? Are they moving through life without feeling anything? Are they completely untouched by your absence? Not necessarily. Physical distance cannot always erase emotional resonance that has already entered the unconscious. When a person consciously tries to suppress a thought or feeling, it does not always disappear. Sometimes it is pushed below awareness, where it can become even more persistent. This can create a kind of unconscious fixation. While they are working, driving, or keeping themselves busy, memories of you may appear at unexpected times. A song playing on the radio, the smell of coffee similar to the kind you often drank, a street corner the two of you once passed together, a small detail that no one else would notice. These things can become emotional triggers. They can bring your image back into the center of their thoughts, even while they are trying to act unaffected. They may feel your absence most strongly in the solitude they created. Nighttime can be especially difficult for a stubborn ego. During the day, work, noise, responsibilities, and distractions help them maintain the emotional walls they have built. But when night comes and everything becomes quiet, those walls can begin to crack. They may look at their phone the way you do. They may open your social media profile. They may look at your photos. They may reread old conversations. They may linger over messages they cannot bring themselves to answer. But pride and fear can keep their hand from pressing send. Pulling away physically can sometimes intensify mental preoccupation. When someone no longer has access to you in real life, their unconscious may keep trying to solve the emotional puzzle of you, and that can leave them caught in a cycle of longing they helped create. But there is an emotional trap people often fall into during this phase, one that can make the other person retreat even further. Do not rush to chase them aggressively. Do not send message after message demanding answers. Do not pour anger into public spaces in the hope that they will notice. Why can this become a trap? Because when you chase them, you may accidentally confirm to their ego that they still control your emotional world. They no longer have to sit with their own guilt, confusion, or longing, because they know you are still waiting anxiously for them to turn around. And your pursuit may also reinforce their fear that closeness will take away their freedom. It may give them a reason to rationalize their withdrawal. This does not mean you must become cold or play games. It means you need to stop abandoning yourself while trying to keep someone else close. You cannot remain forever in an emotional waiting room. Now we reach the most important stage of this journey, emotional transformation, or what could be called the alchemy of the soul. This painful pause is not necessarily a punishment from the universe. It can become a sacred space, a space where you gather the energy you have been scattering outside yourself and bring it back home. For too long, you may have placed your happiness, your peace, and your sense of worth in another person's hands. Your mood may have depended on whether they sent a message. Your whole day may have changed, depending on whether they viewed your story, liked a post, or remained silent. That is one of the clearest forms of self-abandonment. Now it is time to retrieve your energy. Jung spoke of individuation, the process through which a person becomes more whole within themselves. It is the process of recognizing the bright and dark aspects of the soul, integrating them, and becoming more complete before trying to unite deeply with another person in a healthy relationship. This silence can be an invitation into that process. You are being asked to return to yourself. Why does chasing someone who is pulling away often make them run even farther? Because relationship dynamics can become polarized. One person pursues and the other avoids. The more firmly you remain in the role of the pursuer, the more easily they remain in the role of the person escaping. But there is something important that can happen when you stop chasing completely. When you stop searching outside yourself for reassurance, when you release the panic, take a breath, and begin rebuilding the inner temple of your own soul, your emotional energy changes. The person who has been pulling away may notice an unfamiliar emptiness. The emotional pull they had grown used to feeling from you is no longer there in the same way. The silence they once used as a protective wall can begin to feel like a cold, empty room, and that shift may eventually make them look back. They may wonder why the mirror of their soul is no longer reflecting them as it once did. I know part of you may want to message them tonight. Before your fingers touch the screen, listen carefully. Let the silence do the work it needs to do. Do not interrupt the psychological process unfolding inside them. Let them experience the real consequence of choosing distance. An ego can survive for 1 week, 2 weeks, or even several months by feeding itself with pride and stubbornness. But no ego can carry the weight of genuine longing forever. At some point, people are drawn toward connection, healing, and emotional union. That does not guarantee they will return, but it does mean that pride often loses strength when it is faced with the truth of loss. Guilt and regret usually do not destroy a person's defenses all at once. They work slowly, like water falling again and again onto hard stone. At first, they may feel proud of themselves for not reaching out. They may think they are strong because they have resisted contact. But as time passes, something may shift. They may see that you are no longer chasing them. They may notice that you are moving forward. They may see you taking care of yourself, smiling again, rebuilding your life, and becoming more whole without their presence. That is when a deep crack can appear in the ego. The real fear begins to rise. The fear that they may have lost someone who loved them sincerely, simply to protect a pride that was never worth the cost. There are subtle psychological signs that someone may be starting to surrender to feelings they have been resisting. They may not suddenly come to you, fall at your feet, and apologize, at least not in the beginning. Their pride may be too strong for that. Instead, they may begin looking for you indirectly. They may become one of the first people to view your social media stories. They may ask mutual friends how you are doing, using a casual tone that tries to hide their anxiety. They may accidentally like an old post. They may share something that only you would understand, a song you both used to listen to, a private reference, a quiet code meant to reach you without requiring them to be vulnerable enough to speak directly. These small moments can be early cracks in the defenses they built. But returning takes courage. For them, coming back may mean admitting that their ego lost against something more honest: love, vulnerability, and emotional truth. And if that moment comes, meet it not from an open wound full of resentment, but from a calmer and more complete version of yourself. Do not welcome them back by forgetting what hurt you. Welcome them, if you choose to, from a place where you can see clearly. A place where you no longer have to beg to be chosen. A place where you can decide whether what they offer is emotionally safe enough for your heart. Write peace in the comments if you are choosing yourself again. Now let this become a quiet room for your heart, a place where you can put down the anxiety you have been carrying on your shoulders. Remind yourself that you were not wrong for loving deeply. The ability to love someone sincerely, to feel their presence across distance, to care with tenderness, to recognize emotional depth is not a weakness. It is a gift. It means your soul is alive. It means you are sensitive. It means you have the capacity to connect beyond the surface. Do not regret the sincerity you gave, even if that sincerity is being met with cold silence right now. What leaves you with genuine love can return to you in a more beautiful form, sooner or later. Tonight, release the burden of overthinking. Let your exhausted mind rest from every question. What are they doing? Who are they with? Do they miss me? Are they thinking about me at all? You do not need to solve every mystery before you allow yourself to breathe. Trust the process unfolding within you. If they truly belong in a chapter of your soul that still needs to be completed, if the bond between you is a genuine resonance, then physical distance, ego defenses, and long silence may not be enough to erase the path back to truth. But if life has another plan, trust that the empty space they left may be preparing you for something greater, something that does not love you through fear, something that does not run from intimacy, something that does not require distance in order to feel safe. Write ready in the comments if you are done chasing uncertainty. If these words have brought even a little warmth back into your chest, stay connected for more reflections on psychology, emotional healing, Jungian depth, and the hidden patterns of the human soul. Save this for the nights when silence feels too loud. Return to it when overthinking begins to rise again, and you need a gentle but firm reminder. Your intuition deserves respect, but your peace deserves protection too. Sleep peacefully tonight. Let your breathing become slower. Let your mind soften. There are things moving beneath the surface that you cannot yet see, but your highest responsibility is not to control every outcome. It is to remain safe within yourself. This distance may only be one small chapter in a story that is not finished unfolding. You are worthy, you are valuable, and you do not have to lose yourself in order to be loved.